Tonight, we're going to talk about not a podcast, a blog. Wow. We're going to talk about a blog that I read this week that I thought was pretty good. And so we just want to kind of go over some things that they talked about. It's Les and Leslie Parrott.
P-E-R, like
You know, I never wanted to call them Parrott because I thought they couldn't be right. Yeah. So I like Perot and Perrot and all this stuff. And then it found out it was Parrott.
It's good easy English.
But very prominent in the marriage industry. And they wrote a blog called 5 Everyday Marriage Problems and How to Tackle Them. So I just kind of wanted to go through those 5 things, kind of get your insight on a few of them, or all 5.
Or none.
I didn't got anything to say. So
anyway, welcome to Pillow Talk.
Welcome to Pillow Talk.
We're a little rusty. We were off last week, so yeah.
Oh, we're just getting started.
Yeah, we're just getting started.
Waiting for people to jump on anyway. So
you know, one of the main desires of our heart is to help couples to eliminate frustration, because frustration is the gap between expectations and reality. So the 5 things that we're going to talk about today are things that really happen a lot the first of the year, because a lot of times we start into the year separately with these huge goals and these really exciting things that we want to work on, but a lot of times we don't always share those to the extent with our spouse that we should, and we're still working on that. It's a work in progress, but sometimes then we will find that maybe like 1 to 5 of these things will all of a sudden begin to slip in because of good things. Sometimes it's that we're trying to improve ourselves and we're trying to make this a better year, but in the process of our own excitement and our own design and purpose, we kind of forget that we are together for a purpose as well.
Right.
And I love one of the things I say about this, tackling how to tackle these 5 everyday marriage problems. These are everyday. These are common. That's what that means. So this shouldn't be something that you're embarrassed about. And because it's common, a lot of times we overlook things that are common because we're so used to it being there, and it becomes habitual. But they mentioned that these are problems that every marriage goes through. It's over the course of the relationship, and I love that because these are obstacles. So almost it's like I think about it's an obstacle course. Our marriage is a course, and the obstacles that we come up against, we're blessed because we have a spouse and a partner to help us get over that wall. I think about the pictures I always see of the Marines and the Army and the Armed Forces doing those obstacle courses, but when they're doing them as a team, every man wins. They get every man over the wall. So,
nobody's like a crab.
Nobody's like a crab. They don't pull them down.
They don't pull them down.
Yeah. So as a marriage, we help each other get over these obstacles. So that was a long way of saying, if you or your spouse is struggling with one of these 5, it's not to sit back and say, yeah, that's the problem. It's like, well, how can I push you over that wall?
Right.
Communication is what eliminates frustration, and that's what Pillow Talk is all about.
Absolutely. Very good. So you got off to a great start for someone
done.
who had nothing to say. And not a one of you believed that. Hey, Mary Ann. Hey, Kendra. Welcome. Good to see you all on here tonight. So as we go through these 5 everyday marriage problems, I think, just they may not sound exactly like what yours is, but I guarantee you there will be something that you'll say, yeah, mine may be tweaked this way a little bit, but yeah, that's one of them. So, number 1 is not making time for each other, and that's usually because we're so busy. It's
Busy's our bad 4-letter word.
It really is. In fact, we mistake accomplishments for busy. And so we think that we're doing good things and we're accomplishing in our marriage. And man, our marriage is okay. We never talk to each other. We never see each other because we're so busy. But, our marriage is good. Your marriage is probably being eroded from the root. And so therefore it's just gradually dying, and you don't know it because your leaves are still good. And so that's one thing I've noticed, is in the past when we struggled, and if you'll kind of take it back, it's not what happens to you immediately.
It's foundational.
It's the foundational stuff that you start to, it just needs a little water.
Or maybe it has too much water and needs some air.
Yeah.
It's knowing what your plant needs.
Right.
So what does your marriage need?
Yep. So thanks for being on here, Melissa.
Hey, Missy.
So one thing is make time for each other. And some people do the date night thing. In fact, that's very popular. We're not really date night people. and that probably is blasphemy in the marriage
No, because it's not a
but-
one size fits all, right?
but it's not.
This is about finding what works for your spouse. But again, it's the communication of, hey, I feel like we're not getting that quality time together. What do you feel like we can do together that fits
Right.
for us? Not fits into our busy schedule, but fits how we can feel replenished
Yes.
in our together time.
Right. So that's just find out what you need, and there it goes back to communication, because you need to let your spouse know what you need, because it may not be what they need, and you both need to make sure that you're taking care of each other in the area of having the proper amount of time.
You know, and this may seem really basic, but sometimes I know when you're, especially if you both have careers or you're both working in business, even together, that sometimes we don't compare our calendars. And, you know, you were really good about planning something really special for me, but what you don't know is that night I have a client consultation at 7:00, and I'm like, I can't do this because I already had this on the calendar, and it's not that I don't want to make time for you. So even something that simple, look at each other's calendars. What's your schedule like this week? Where can we carve out some time this week? Don't try to make it be necessarily every Friday night. What does this week look like? Does that make sense? I mean, it needs to be flexible. It needs to be organic and ongoing all the time. It's not something that you do together, put it down as every Friday night thing, and then you're done. It's not a one and done. It's a
Well, you know,
constant.
I've always heard that, you know, if you want to make love in the bedroom, make love in the kitchen. And I really don't think that means how it's always been taught, because I don't think it's, you know, getting into the kitchen and now all of a sudden I do all the dishes, I do all the cooking and all this
Right.
stuff. I think it's the time that you spend together
Yeah.
while you're in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
kitchen.
yeah.
You know, it's not,
Connecting, yeah.
yeah, it's not just, you know, taking over and doing everything for the other person. So.
Absolutely.
But another thing is we get out of sync. And
big one.
what they say here is life can throw us out of sync with one another from time to time. Often this manifests as a breakdown in communication and understanding. When we can't understand where our spouse is coming from, it's impossible to see their point of view. That's
We've been there a lot.
a lot today. No.
Well, I mean,
But,
I do
yeah.
feel like after the holidays, the first year we had to be, we do fall into that trap a lot. Just to, you know, we're not perfect. This is what this pillow talks about, is sharing with you some of our struggles, is we do get out of sync. We get out of sync, and then it's kind of like the Bible talks about a foot out of joint. It's just kind of annoying and painful, but it's not anything it's nagging.
Yeah.
And
It's not threatening to the marriage.
It's not threatening to the marriage. It's just
It's
out of
just
sync.
something ain't right,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah. And so, and I love what they said here. The way you handle that problem is to always go back to the basics when you find yourself out of sync, and recall all the reasons you fell in love. I think that's so important, because I know for me, that's almost right on there with like washing her with the water of the word. You know, once I start rehearsing why we got together to begin with, then it starts bringing back those memories. It starts bringing back those good times. You know, the dates when you melted your shoe under the
The heater in the
the
car.
heater in the car.
We thought
you
something
know?
was wrong with the car.
But those are the things, you know, like you can be having a bad day and think something like
Yeah.
that, and it's pretty funny. You know, yeah, we pulled over and called my dad and said,
Something's
you know,
wrong with the car.
car's on fire. And she just was sitting in the middle.
I was
and-
sitting in the middle, had my foot under the old-fashioned car heaters, and I had a pair of tennis shoes on, and it got really hot. And I wasn't smart enough to realize my foot was on fire. So anyway, we're on the same team, and that's what being in sync's about. Is getting, you know, you watch a football game, you watch when those teams get out of sync slightly, and the receivers are missing their routing, and it's just a little bit out of sync, and they got to get back in that huddle, and they've got to re-communicate more specifically, and then bam, a professional team they won't do a lot of those, right? We just watched football this weekend, so it's in my head. But so as a married couple, being out of sync is not the end of your marriage. It's just don't, you know, we talked once before about the fire alarms. When you start to feel out of sync with each other, don't take that into the negative ditch, but also don't ignore that. So you're on the same team, so you've got to say, hey, how come I keep missing this route?
Right.
You're throwing the ball here, I'm running here. How come?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Number 3, I would say, don't let the irritants become frustrations.
Yeah.
We talked about that.
The little foxes.
The
that
little
spoil the vine.
foxes,
Yeah.
and it's their wording was patient. They're losing patience for everyday annoyances, and it's easy to do that. I mean, it's easy to those, you know, just to let those little things just build up, and that all of a sudden you know it, you're arguing over something that wasn't even the thing that got you annoyed to begin with. So
Yeah, it just kind of begins to scar over, put a Band-Aid over what's really the problem. And especially after the year everybody's had, you know, it's definitely a season where you've got to be probably more intentional. I would say this number 3 is something that number 3 and number 4 that we're getting ready to get into are things that have probably happened more this year, what you think, just because of the nature of what
would
every
think so.
couple has had to go through.
Well, you spend so much more time with each other. The annoyances are definitely.
And we're all adjusting to different ways of working, different ways of being healthy, different ways of caring for people, thinking about what we have to do. And we get out of sync internally because we're not sure what we're doing. And then we lose patience with each other because I don't have time to keep up with your annoyances because I have my own now.
She's always had her own. I don't know what she was waiting
Yeah.
for now.
Especially in my work world right now, lots of annoyances.
But yeah, those little things just add up and they create a negative impact over time. So, we just got to make sure that we're aware and then react like you would want your spouse to react.
And when your spouse comes to you and says, this is really annoying me what you're doing. Okay, it's not so that your spouse can say, yeah, well, you just need to get over that. And it's not so that you expect your spouse to immediately stop. It's coming together to set that expectation for in this season right now, I really would ask that you help me with this and not do XYZ or do XYZ because I'm really struggling in other areas. This is going to help take a load off me. This is going to give me some peace of mind.
And I would say it like that, not say you're really annoying me right now.
Yeah, don't say that.
You're probably going to make them very defensive with those kind of words.
But if he's going to come to me and say, hey, I've noticed that you're working in your sweats all the time, every day, every now and then, like maybe a couple times a week when I come home, could you maybe have some regular type of clothes on? Or whatever that would look like. And I'm not going to get offended by that. It's like, oh, didn't realize with COVID that I've gotten into the slouchy
Walmart.
We all have our comfortable clothes. And when you're working from home every day, sitting at a desk for 8 or 9 hours a day, you really don't want to be wearing dress clothes. Yeah. So, but it's still important to look nice for your spouse. That was just a stupid little thing, but it's stuff like that. Don't be affected in a negative way when your spouse says, because otherwise what's going to happen if you're a personality like me, I'm going to be like, okay, whatever, I'll just deal with it because I don't want to bring it up. Yeah. And maybe you're that person in your relationship. If you're the opposite person, am I saying this wrong? Don't create a fear barrier for your spouse to say, hey, I'm starting to get really annoyed with this and it's not you, it's just for whatever reason, everything right now, this is not something I can handle well. Could you please help me during a season of this? And just approach it.
Communicate.
Help me, yeah. Communicate. And it be something that, yeah. I feel like I'm trying to say that better.
That's all I got to say about that.
So,
number 4 would be sometimes we'd like to numb out when life gets too real or too, I know, and I won't mention who it was, but they used to always just stick their head in the sand when everything, I don't even want to think about that. And, well, that's never the answer. There's a time to talk about it. There's a time not to talk about it. There's a time to think about it. There's a time to clear your head and just relax. Yeah. But sticking your head in the sand is not going to make a problem go away. It's just going to make it magnify. Because it's like a plant. It will continue to grow underground, and you don't even know it. And then all of a sudden, boom! One day it blows up out of the ground, and you're just like, "That's when Katie bar the door. Here we come."
And I think everybody has ways of numbing. Sometimes it's chemical things. Sometimes it's things, I'm talking about, whatever that would look like, alcohol, drugs, whatever, even recreational. Sometimes it's shopping. You look up and you're spending so much money because you want your mind to be someplace besides the reality of what you have to deal with right now. And that's, again, why Pillow Talk's so important, because you've got to bridge that gap, and you've got to talk about, this is the reality. Help me to figure out a way to diverge this. This expectation I have that this thing that I'm doing is going to numb this, because it's not. Right. But if you talk about that in your head, you're going to convince yourself that it is. I think that's what happens. You convince yourself that I just need to take a trip. And you do need to take a trip, and you need to book it with me. No, I'm just kidding. We can't take trips right now very well. But, if you're a person that's always been your escape route, or if sitting down with a glass of wine every night is your escape route, all of a sudden, when that becomes what you have to cling to because life is getting too real, and you're not communicating. I'm not saying those things are wrong, but I'm saying it becomes...
That's what the Bible means when it talks about not having any idols before God.
Yeah, that's good.
Once you start to make something else your idol, or your scapegoat, your deliverer, then you got a problem. And I think it's really important that we always make sure that God is the first person we run to, and our spouse is the next person we run to. And we need to make sure that we're not taking it to all of our friends first, especially if one of your friends is of the opposite sex. man, if they're really sensitive to what you're saying and your spouse isn't at the time, man, that opens up bad doors. You don't want to go there. So we just don't want to do that. And one of the ways you handle this is just be, and I hate the word vulnerable, but if there's not a better word, you just got to be vulnerable with one another and share what you're feeling. And you know, it's just like, man, I just don't want to deal with this right now. Well, that's okay. We don't have to tonight, honey, but tomorrow we really need to talk
But
this
can we
over.
have a plan? Can we set a time to have a plan where give yourself a few days, give yourself some space, but you know, we are going to have to address this.
Right.
And that's one way to diffuse that situation is to not put your head in the sand, but you can delay the hard conversation as long as it's on the calendar. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with having a hard conversation on the calendar, because sometimes at the end of a long day of work, that's really not the time that you're in your best space to support your spouse or to be the person that has to, you know, bear the brunt of what your spouse is bringing, and respect that about each other. So don't numb out when life gets too real, because life's going to get real. It's gotten real for a lot of people, and you've got to share those human emotions with each other. And in a safe, we're all about, a marriage is supposed to be a safe zone. There's one person in this world that I should be able to talk to unabashedly without fear, and that's him. And I can do that. And
I'd say if you're a guy or if you're a woman with Stephanie's personality, don't try to fix it right then. Just listen. You know, when you're an achiever and that's one of your main strengths, then you think, hey, I got to fix this right now so I can mark that off my list and let's move on.
You want to maximize somebody. You don't want them to go through that.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of times, you know, here's the thing. A lot of times as a spouse, you know your spouse so well, and you do know, you're like, you're just not seeing this. You've got the answer and you know how to do this, but sometimes it's just not the time for me to say that. It's just the time for me to listen.
Right.
And to maybe learn how to coach that out of you. And
there's a time for the law and there's a time for grace. And, you know, giving someone the word when they're just needing the comfort of you being there is not always the right time. And, you know, so just be careful when you're doing that. Careful is probably the wrong word. Just be aware.
Be very sensitive.
And sensitive when you're doing that.
To your spouse on that.
Yeah. And then number 5, finish this up, is failing to cultivate intimacy. Now, I have a funny feeling my idea of what cultivating intimacy is different than yours.
Oh, you think?
I think it's probably different. So,
Grant spells intimacy S-E-X, but he's never been a good speller.
And A-L-L-O-F-T-H-E-T-I-M-E. But seriously, you know, intimacy starts in the conversations
1 through 4,
first.
and 1 through 4. If you're struggling with 1, 2, 3, or 4, intimacy is going to be the victim. You're going to not be able to step into that space of intimacy, and then things really do start to unravel. And it's a tough road to hoe sometimes. Did I say that right? Tough road to hoe.
That's pretty good.
But it's very important. And, you know, again, how do you tackle that problem? How do you tackle that obstacle? I actually like the word obstacle better. I don't like to be problem focused, but I do know that there are obstacles in our way sometimes. But how do we tackle that obstacle?
And it's creating time for each other. It's whether you do have a date night or you just need to have some one-on-one time. Just to let's go for a drive. Let's you know, hey, let's don't invite nobody over. You know, I mean, there's always those kind of times, you know. Me, I'm an extrovert, so everybody in town's welcome every night. Stephanie's an introvert, so therefore...
I love you guys, but don't show up at my doorstep. Unless you really need something.
But you know, seriously, she's not going to rejuvenate from a big night, laughing, cutting up, partying.
With 20 people in my
She's
house.
going to say, oh, now I got to go home and take a break.
Yeah.
And me, I'm going to be juiced, man. It's like life is wonderful right now. I don't get why you're so tired.
Aren't we funny? Isn't that funny how we're all different as couples? What a sense of humor God has.
But, you know, again, if intimacy away from what I think it should be.
You don't even want to say it, do you?
No, not at all. If you just spend a little time in that intimacy, you will cause your passion to grow in the other way.
Yeah. Because when you feel loved, the natural outflow of that is a passion and a desire to be together. That is how God created us. and we do crave that togetherness that only sex inside of marriage can create.
Right.
But it's just sex if there's not intimacy.
Yeah. And
that's
by the way,
difference.
if our kids are watching this, we don't ever do that.
Oh my gosh, this is getting out of control really fast.
So anyway, we just wanted to come to you tonight and kind of go over those things after we're getting really close to a year of this junk
COVID,
going
yeah.
on.
Hang in there, guys.
Hang in.
It's gonna get better. Yeah, it is.
One
It
way
is
or
gonna get
another,
better.
it's going to get better.
Yeah.
So I don't have much else to say except for thanks for being on, and we'll be back next week. And reach down there, hit the share button, hit a like button once in a while, even if you didn't like it. That's
Oh, hey,
fine.
Terry Bush.
Hey, yeah.
Is that Terry Bush? I can't read it very
Yeah,
good.
Stephanie ain't wearing her glasses. She's not sure either.
Terry used to be my eye doctor, and he's fantastic. And then he went to more of an area that I can't get to him in. So no, I miss you, Terry Bush.
So, but come back next week, and we will touch on maybe the next 5 things that causes our arguments and our week to go bad. No. Remember, stay purpose focused, not problem focused, and life will definitely be a lot more in your favor.
Have fun with your spouse this week, and just make it your intention to create some space together and to just reconnect as you did when you first met.
Yep. We'll see y'all. Have a good one. Love you. Bye.